Hey folks, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this video. This is Doug with News and Views by Doug. And today is Wednesday, July 1st, 2026. And I'm going to put on my reading glasses because I'm really tired and I need some help seeing my notes. So, as usual, lots of good things, lots of bad things are happening around the world. We still have people being pulled out of the debris in Venezuela, and there is aid coming from around the world. Search rescue teams, the dogs, the food, medicine, it's all pouring into Venezuela right now. So hopefully they'll rescue some more people before it's too late. I believe that the earthquake happened 6-7 days ago, and so time's running out. So let's jump into the Middle East as always. In the Persian Gulf, the Iranians were supposed to be meeting with the American negotiators in Doha, Qatar. And Iran said that they never said they were going to show up, so we don't know if they're there. And Iran, one of their big things that they want from the U.S. is a guarantee that they will control the Straits of Hormuz and they will charge service fees to all the ships entering and exiting the Persian Gulf. So we had heard about this for the last several weeks. And Oman, which is supposed to be one of the United States allies, they're directly across from Iran, and they are the other controlling country of the Straits of Hormuz. Well, they're supposed to be an ally of the United States, and they announced this morning that they also will be charging fees along with the Iranians. And this is international shipping waters that most of the oil in the world comes through. And now you got Oman basically saying they're going to join Iran and charge fees. And the U.S. is furious about this and don't know how Trump's going to react. He keeps claiming that the Straits of Hormuz will remain open and will be free to all international shipping. You know, I could be wrong, but I've got an idea behind it all. The United States has one of the largest oil reserves in the world. And for a while there, we were the leading oil producer in the country when we were doing the frack drilling and other things like that and reopening up several areas that is known to have oil. So why don't we go ahead and become that leading producer of oil and say, screw the Middle East. Let the Europeans and the Asians and the Africans worry about it. Let's pull out our own oil and refine it. I think we'd be much better off that we didn't have to worry about the Persian Gulf. But that's just my opinion. So Yemen is a country to the south of Saudi Arabia, and they have control over the Red Sea, another shipping route. And if you go north in the Red Sea, eventually you end up in the Suez Canal. And if you go west, you end up in the Gulf of Oman and the Indian Ocean. I'm sorry, if you go south. So Yemen's been having a civil war for years. And the bad guys, the Houthis, have had control of a section near the near the Red Sea. And the U.S. has attacked them several times. They've attacked Israel. They've attacked others. And so Israel and the United States have been fighting with the Houthis, which is also Iranian-backed. Now, we know that Saudi Arabia has been helping the Yemen government, which still has most of the country in their control. And Saudi Arabia has been helping them fight against the Houthis. One thing I didn't know was that the United Arab Emirates were also involved in helping the Yemen government, or Yemeni. And suddenly there's been a divide between the allies. Saudi Arabia basically attacked a UAE port. They did it last night. And they told the UAE to get out of Yemen or suffer more attacks. And these guys are supposed to be friendly. They're supposed to be, brother Arabs and in it together as allies. Well, because this is happening, the UAE was actually pulling out. The Iranians have IRGC troops in the rebel-held area of Yemen, and they're supposed to be mobilizing now. So it's just more confusion in the Middle East. Now, something else that came out a couple days ago was that Iran has proxy forces, Iraqi militia, that are in Iraq, and that they have many pro-Iranian government officials in the government of Iraq. Well, a couple of days ago, the Iraqi government sent their troops to go and arrest these pro-Iranian politicians. And these politicians have bodyguards and militias. And I guess there's just been some huge fighting going on as the Iraqi army is trying to wipe out these militias and arrest these politicians. And, again, just more and more coming out of the Middle East. We do know that there's been fighting between the Kurds and the IRGC. And it's been happening throughout the western Iran. You'll have to excuse me, folks. I'm really tired. And I had something bit me this morning. So I took some Benadryl and it's been making me kind of sleepy. So that's why I keep, screwing up over my words. But something else that came out is that IRGC officials are being assassinated. And one of the groups that claimed took credit for the assassination of 4 IRGC members calls themselves the Son of the Kurds, which is basically not sons as in human, but the sun above. So we've got that happening. Now, in New York last week, we had several politicians win their primaries, and they are members of the Democratic Socialists of America, also known as communists. And 3 of them won their primaries, so now we're going to be waiting to see who they're going to be running against in the general election, which is usually, I think, November. But yesterday in Colorado, we had another DSA communist, another person, not really American, got her citizenship through her parents, possibly an anchor baby. And she won and defeated a long-standing Democrat incumbent in Colorado. The other DSA member didn't win.
CBS News is now projecting Democratic socialist Milad Quiros has won the Democratic primary in the state's first congressional district. The 29-year-old political newcomer defeated 15-term incumbent Congresswoman Diana DeGette. She is now poised to win this November's general election and become the first Gen Z woman in Congress. Quiros delivered a spirited victory speech to her supporters last night.
Denver voters of all ages, of all races, of all religions sends a clear message. We will not wait.
But that far-left wave didn't stretch across all of Colorado. CBS News projects Democratic incumbent John Hickenlooper defeated Julie Gonzalez in the Senate primary. Gonzalez is a former member of the Democratic Socialists of America. And
that whole communism thing, it's just like a Cuba, China, New York, LA phenomenon. It would never happen in the heartland. It would never happen in the middle of the country, of course, right? We're America. Wrong. the daughter of an Ethiopian who is an anchor baby, right? And just had that ruling at the Supreme Court. Just won against a 15-year Democrat incumbent, Diana DeGette, who you've probably never heard of her because she's just a psychotic radical leftist. She is one of the single most left-wing members of the Democrat Party. Just like in New York, where Dan Goldman lost. He's the guy who brought the impeachment charges against Donald Trump. And the guy in charge of the Hispanic caucus, Espaillat, he also lost. These are people with decades of incumbency under their belts, and they are losing to communists. They're losing to the communists. Meet Melat Kiros. Yep. Defeated Diana DeGette in a landslide here, right? So 41-51. She wins. And she becomes the next Democrat socialist, now from Colorado, to unseat not a Republican, not some squishy like Democrat, a blue dog. Oh, he voted, to confirm Kavanaugh or something. He voted for abortion or something. He voted, he was a pro-life Democrat. No, these are the hardened left-wingers that are being defeated by the communists. Okay, so understand the moment that we're in. So who's your newest member of Congress? Who's the new Ilhan Omar here, ladies and gentlemen? It's Melat Kiros. What is a Melat Kiros? Well, no one's quite sure. She's 29 years old. So she's like technically, I guess, Gen Z, right? And no surprise here, she hates America. It's certainly got a makeover. Hates America. Yeah, I mean, it's like, again, here we go. I will not wait to abolish ICE and pass Medicare for all. We will not wait to end the genocide in Palestine.
To put an end to the politics of the past, to get big money out of our politics, and to reject corporate PACs and AIPAC.
But this is a woman who has come out and praised 9/11, the attack on the United States, and the October 7th invasion of Israel by the Palestinians. And she praised them and said they were inevitable. And that she even basically said that both the U.S. and Israel deserved these attacks. And this is a woman who wants to be in our government. And her family came from Ethiopia. She's also very anti-Semitic. And yet, somehow these people are getting elected, or not elected, but they're being, voted in to run in the primaries. So I just don't get it. We've got these people that are running for office. They're communists. A large majority of them are coming from the Middle East or Africa. And there's Americans voting for them, knowing that they're communists. Folks, you need to look at history. There's not one single government that is ran by communists that has ever really been successful. And millions upon millions of people died when these communist governments took over. And look at the 1950s. Read up on your history, how the communists were trying to come into command in the United States, or come into power in the United States. There's only one good thing that could come of this. The Democrats that didn't vote for these communists, hopefully they'll switch sides and vote for the Republican that's running against these DSA proxies. I guess that's a decent word to use. Okay, another note. Another foreigner. We keep seeing all these reports that Ilhan Omar, a representative from Michigan, they say there's proof that she married her brother. There's supposed to be proof of fraud. And now there's apparently growing evidence that she was involved in this billions and billions of dollars of government fraud where she and an army of other Somalians were stealing money from the U.S. government. And the ringleader, when he found out he was going to be arrested, he took off to Somalia. Well, the government of Somalia helped the FBI and the Department of Justice. They found him, they arrested him, and he's been extradited to the United States, where he'll be facing all types of fraudulent charges. And you'll see in these videos that there are email links between the office of Ilhan Omar and this suspected criminal.
So Ilhan Omar's possible ties to a massive Minnesota fraud scheme are back in the spotlight. That after one of the scheme's alleged orchestrators was arrested in Somalia just last week. Garrett Tenney's watching that. Midwest Bureau with more. What details do you have now, Garrett? Hello there.
Hey, Bill, good morning to you. This guy who was arrested was allegedly one of the orchestrators of the massive Feeding Our Futures fraud scheme. And when he was charged 4 years ago, Abdikerm Idle fled the country. His name came up a lot during the trial of the now convicted ringleader of the scandal, Amy Bach. And that trial also exposed multiple communications they had with Congresswoman Ilhan Omar's staff. For example, in February 2021, there was an email chain between Bach and Omar's office with the subject line, "Help with USDA food programs," the same programs that were targeted by the fraudsters for more than $250 million. A couple weeks later, Bach sent Idle an email with the subject line, "Ilhan's office." There was also a string of text messages between Bach and Omar's staff. What did all of those messages say? Well, we don't know that because they were sealed by the court. And when Minnesota lawmakers investigating the fraud requested Congresswoman Omar to turn those records related to her office's contacts with individuals who've been charged or convicted in the scheme, she refused.
It's not like a one-off. She has relationships with many of those who've been convicted or charged in this scheme. So I think it's absolutely relevant that we get to the truth of what those communications with her office were.
Omar has not been charged or accused of any crime connected to the fraud, and she denies any wrongdoing, telling Fox Digital, "Any claim that I had knowledge of this scheme is flat out false. As I stated from the beginning, stealing millions of dollars under the guise of feeding hungry children to bankroll lavish lifestyles and extravagant expenses is reprehensible." State GOP lawmakers are now calling on congressional investigators to take this on, to issue their own subpoena for those records. Bill?
Garrett, thanks. More to come, I believe. And I know you'll have it. Garrett Tenney in Chicago, thank you. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
Ilhan Omar is having a really bad week, month, year, you name it. I mean, she didn't want Donald Trump coming into office for a variety of reasons, but this is especially tricky for her because, you see, we just apprehended one of the lead Somalia fraudsters over in Somalia. He is, as we speak, right here, right now, back in the United States of America. And this is not good news for Ilhan Omar because it turns out he's got a whole bunch of emails that we want to basically show everyone. And those emails reportedly have Ilhan Omar and Ilhan Omar's office all over them. I'm talking about this guy. Oh gosh, Abdikerm? Abdullahi Idle? We'll go with Idle as his last name. Here's the guy that was just charged, okay? Well, he's been charged. He's just been extradited from Somalia back to the United States of America on a variety of things: conspiracy to commit wire fraud, conspiracy to commit federal programs bribery, you name it, money laundering. He's bad news, but we got him now. And the expectation is the paper trail may lead us to a few other people, possibly including one Ms. Ilhan Omar, representative from Minnesota, the ringleader. I should say, the congressperson that introduced the legislation for these various ringleaders who defrauded American taxpayers out of $250 million.
Omar is under scrutiny yet again over her alleged connections to Somali-based individuals arrested for fraud. The most recent individual was found in Somalia after being on the run for 4 years. He was allegedly a central figure in the Feeding Our Future fraud scheme that stole close to $300 million in COVID-19 pandemic relief programs. The suspect allegedly exchanged emails with convicted ringleader Amy Bach that had the subject line Ilhan's office. Congresswoman Omar continues to deny all wrongdoing.
Well, I'm telling you, she's really nervous right about now. Okay, so there are apparently 6 emails. We're going to get into those in just a second, but just to keep you up to speed, I haven't seen a lot of coverage. Fox did a little reporting on just a little doodad right there. And, well, Al Jazeera's been all over it because I guess they want to prop up Somali intel. Oh, Somali government, the Somali intel folks, whatever intel they have over there, they helped us. Okay, so not to take anything away from them, that's great. They helped us. I guess they had to help us, right? Because, well, again, being the world's hegemonic currency and all, but I digress. Somalia apparently cooperated on this one. The alleged fraudster, and he was like number 2 in the whole shebang. It was Amy Bach and then this guy, and he had all the access to all the Somalians. Well, he was hiding out for the last several years in Somalia trying to avoid detection because, we were onto him. It says neither U.S. nor Somali officials have disclosed how Idlay was located. However, the Department of Justice said his arrest was the result of cooperation between the FBI and Somalia's National Intelligence and Security Agency. Prosecutors describe Idlay as the alleged second in command, we told you about that, behind Amy Bach, the convicted mastermind of the scheme built around Feeding Our Future, a Minnesota nonprofit that channeled federal money meant to feed needy children during the pandemic. And of course, Ilhan was the one who introduced all of this legislation. By the way, she's continuing to introduce legislation to help restaurant owners who want to say, work with mentally disadvantaged people out there in Somalia. I don't think any of that's really going to get through. And I think about the nerve of her trying to do that after we found out what really went down here. One of the things I found fascinating, and this is important when you think about Ilhan Omar's business that her husband had, and you think about how he was allegedly raking in all kinds of money to the tune of a net worth somewhere around $30 million, only to, well, have people ask questions, and then he suddenly amended it to 97,000. You tell me how that works. Anyway, this is important because if you read this here, you see that yes, 47, I think like somewhere around 79 people have now been charged, a whole bunch of guilty pleas here. It's the largest pandemic relief fraud ever that's been prosecuted here. Well, this guy, he fled to Somalia, right? As soon as things started getting a little bit hairy. According to prosecutors, Idlay recruited operators into the scheme and collected bribes and kickbacks, which he disguised as consulting fees and funneled them through shell companies. He's accused of setting up his own meal sites under the names of stand-in owners, falsely claiming that they were serving thousands of children a day and inventing, oh, this is great, supplier firms to bill the government for food never delivered. So it's all a big giant sham. It's all totally fake. And it was all introduced by Ilhan Omar, who wanted to ease up on all the rules and all the sort of documentation that would go into any of this, which is kind of interesting. Again, in light of the hubby's consulting firm. So this guy's taking a cut, right? You want to be involved in Feeding Our Future? Okay, come see this guy, who's then going to go to Ilhan Omar's office per these 6 emails. I mean, this is not good. Again, just to kind of bring you up to speed here, $250 million was stolen. The Minnesota representative Ilhan Omar, who represented this very large group of Somalis, all of whom have been, well, many of whom, I should say, somewhere around 80, have been convicted in all of this. And, they just happen to all be majority of Somali descent. This guy was the Somali ringleader, number 2 in the operation alongside Amy Bach, and he took off. He fled for Somalia, but now our FBI, together with our DOJ and apparently whatever they have for Somali intelligence over there, they have just brought this guy in. And this now means we get access to his emails. I'm told there are roughly 6 emails that all are connected to Ilhan Omar. Let's go to the...
There's so many things with her. And they keep coming up with more and more things of the fraud and all this crap. And yet nothing happens. We have all these people that supposedly have committed fraud and other crimes in the United States, and they keep bringing it out. It's all over social media. It's all over the news. And yet they never seem to go to trial. And we're not talking about the small time people. We're talking about the bigger people. They never go to trial. It's just amazing. Some more good news. The United States has been averaging about 70,000 deportations of illegal aliens in this country. 70,000 a month. And I just hope it continues. It's out of control. So the final story that I've got, and this one is personal. I talked to you last week about a man who was running an animal sanctuary up in Northern California. And he was basically accepting money from shelters and government agencies to rescue dogs and other animals, try to find them homes. And if not, it was a sanctuary. The dogs would live out their lives and, live in peace. Well, then you'll see in the video where people suspected stuff, and I guess he's been suspected of fraud for a couple of years. But they went out into the fields near his sanctuary and they dug up dead dogs that had been shot. And they went to the sheriff's department. Sheriffs finally got some warrants and went out there. And you'll see a press conference with an update over it. But over 700 dogs, they don't know where they went. They dug up more dogs, over, I think, 118, maybe more, that had bullet holes in them. And this guy just kept accepting more and more dogs over the years. So he's suspected of basically killing these dogs and making money. And there's fraud. He's going to be investigated. But you'll see all this in the press conference. And
everyone hear me okay? All right. Thank you. My name is William Holmes. I'm sheriff here in Humboldt County. Today I want to provide information regarding our ongoing criminal investigation at Miranda's Rescue Animal Sanctuary located in Fortuna, California. I want to begin by acknowledging the seriousness of this case and the significant public concern it has generated. The facts that have been uncovered are deeply disturbing, and I understand the community's desire for answers, accountability, and justice. First, I want to acknowledge how we got here. On April 22nd, 2026, 2 concerned citizens reported allegations of felony animal abuse and potential fraud involving Miranda's Rescue. Those citizens have been monitoring activity at Miranda's Rescue and observed what they believe to be dogs being buried in an open field behind the rescue. Those citizens later entered the property, recovered 8 deceased dogs from the burial site. Those animals were turned over to the Humboldt County Sheriff's Office and a criminal investigation was launched. Miranda's Rescue advertises itself as an animal sanctuary and entered into agreements with animal shelters and rescue organizations to provide a place where animals could either be adopted out or live out their lives in the sanctuary. The allegations in this case, Miranda's Rescue received money for animal placements, but later euthanized and were not adopted out or allowed to live out their lives in their sanctuary as represented. A search warrant was authorized and served at Miranda's Rescue on May 1st, 2026. During that operation, investigators seized electronics, business records, financial records, firearms, and other vital evidence. Since that time, investigators have reviewed records, analyzed evidence, and contacted animal shelters and rescue organizations throughout California and even outside the state. Based on records reviewed by our team from January 25 until April 26, investigators have identified the following preliminary numbers. When I say preliminary numbers, these are the numbers that we know about. We do know that more animals are transferred to that facility than we have documentation for. Out of what we know, 918 dogs were surrendered and were transferred to Miranda's Rescue. 116 have been adopted out through adoption records we can verify. 71 dogs were discovered available for adoption on May 20th. There are still 45 dogs remaining at Miranda's Rescue still today. And that leaves 731 dogs unaccounted for. After several weeks of preparing, and assembling a team of investigators, June 23rd, 2026, the Humboldt County Sheriff's Office Major Crimes Division completed a second search warrant operation and follow-up investigation at Miranda's Rescue. That search warrant authorized the Sheriff's Office to search the grounds, buildings associated with Miranda's Rescue for evidence related to animal cruelty and fraud. This included the excavation of open fields for evidence for deceased dogs believed to be buried in mass graves. During the excavation, investigators uncovered 117 intact canine remains from 2 separate dig sites. I'm gonna go ahead and review. This is what we have as far as Miranda's Rescue and overhead satellite view. Miranda's Rescue is in our lower left corner. The rescue operations with the kennels. We have the ranch on the north end of things. And the open field is this area right here. The dogs, this open field was, this is how it looked when we arrived on scene. When we arrived on scene, we scraped off the property to use our ground penetrating radar to report any anomalies in the soil. We used that information to know where to potential dig. We had a grid pattern to demonstrate the anomalies in the soil and to determine where possibly could be dig sites. We then started our excavation on the 23rd. This is where we located the bulk of the intact canines. There were 2 holes, distinct holes, one here, signifying by the blue tarp. I'll go back. By this blue tarp right here. The other one was right here. We excavated 117 dogs out of those 2 holes. The deepest was about 12 to 15 feet deep. The dogs were layered. You can tell that there was different times that the various dogs were put in. And according to our timeline through evidence, it was determined that the dogs were buried here sometime after January, between January and April 2026. 70 of the dogs were x-rayed on site, and many of those dogs showed evidence of bullet fragments. Shows how deep we were going. Sorry, back up. 70 of those dogs were x-rayed on site, and many of those dogs showed evidence of bullet fragments. Veterinarians on site preliminary determined that many of the dogs died from gunshot wounds. In total, 91 microchips were recovered from the scene. 6 were recovered from the loose dirt area where the bones were discovered. That's where the 29 canine skulls and hundreds of dog bones were discovered. The 6 loose microchips were also discovered in there. And 85 of the microchips were scanned from those 117 intact dogs. Many of those microchips trace back to shelters and rescue facilities throughout the state. I have our analysts currently working and reviewing that data obtained by those microchips, and we're working to link up our investigators with those previous owners of those dogs. 8 animals originally turned over to the Sheriff's Office by the 2 concerned citizens are currently being held in storage, and necropsies will be performed on these animals in the future. This case has many moving parts, as you all know. Investigators will be spending a significant amount of time working with our state and federal partners to analyze the data, physical evidence, and financial information associated with this case. This includes interviewing witnesses and following up on tips. This process will take time. Upon completion of the investigation and after a thorough review of all evidence, if there is sufficient evidence to support violations of animal cruelty, fraud, conspiracy, or other applicable laws, the case will be submitted to the prosecution team for review and consideration of criminal charges. I understand the public's cry for justice. I understand the public's cry for transparency. However, we must balance the public's right to know with the constitutional and legal rights of everyone involved. This case will not be solved in the public forum. It will be handled through the criminal justice system and, if appropriate, a court of law. I'm asking everyone to take a breath in this time. Allow the investigation and legal process to work. We owe that to the victims, to the community, and to the integrity of this case. Also want to say that the Sheriff's Office has received hundreds and hundreds of tips in this case. We're following up on those tips, and we continue to do so every day, receive more tips. At this time, there are many rumors circulating in our community about additional locations we should search, possible suspects, and other claims. We ask that the public please provide information directly to investigators and avoid spreading unverified information that could compromise the investigation. Many people have asked why Miranda's Rescue has been allowed to continue operating under these allegations. This remains an active criminal investigation, it's true, but it's important to understand that there's no current law or specific state permit or license required to operate an animal rescue in California. So they're allowed to continue operating in this time. I do want to say that I do believe that there's several things that need to be changed throughout the state. There needs to be legislation, and I want to say that there was legislation this last year. AB 631 was proposed. That would require shelters and rescues like Miranda's Rescue to collect and report important information, including a number of animals taken in, the source of intake, and the outcome for each animal. That would require them to say if the animal was returned to owner, adopted, transferred to another facility, organization, euthanized, died in care, or dead on arrival. This type of accountability and transparency is necessary. That bill would be held in committee, and I believe that needs to be pushed forward this next legislative season. Like I said before, California has a serious spay and neuter problem, and something needs to be done about it. Animal shelters across the state are overwhelmed. Rescues are beyond capacity, and too many healthy adoptable animals are being put at risk because the system cannot keep up. This is not just a shelter issue, it is a community responsibility. We need stronger public education, greater access to affordable spay and neuter services, responsible pet ownership, and renewed statewide commitment to reduce the number of unwanted animals. If we are serious about animal welfare, we must address this problem at its source.
The reason I call it personal is I'm a dog person. I've had several dogs throughout my life, tried to give them the best life possible, and I've had 3 of them die on me from old age. I now currently have 2 pups. You'll see a picture here. And they're my best friends. I've got Hank, the German Shedder. And then I've got Ellie, who's a young golden retriever. And yeah, there's times when your dog pisses you off by chewing on something, destroying something, digging holes in the backyard. But they truly bring joy to my world. Especially when they greet you at the door and tails are wagging and they're jumping up and down because they're happy to see you. And then they want to come lay with you, and they will protect you. They'll give their life for you. How many humans can you say that would be willing to do that? So anyways, folks, like I said, I'm sorry for me stumbling over my words. I'm tired. The Benadryl's kicking in, so it's making me sleepy. And I just hope you have a safe day. I'm going to leave you with a quote. And here it is, folks, from President James Madison. If men were angels, no government would be necessary. You must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself. Small government. That's what it's supposed to be about. Okay, folks, like I always tell you, be safe, be aware of your surroundings, take care of your family and friends, and live a good life. Good luck to the American soccer team today in their World Cup game against Bosnia-Herzegovina. And I just wish you peace. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. You take care.